Marvel just made things 10 times more confusing with the first trailer for Avengers Doomsday. We've got Doctor Doom casually stopping Stormbreaker with just 2 fingers, Loki returning from the center of the multiverse, Steve Rogers de-aging like Benjamin Button, the Fantastic Four crossing over with the Avengers, the X-Men seemingly preparing for the end of their universe, and 3 separate realities on a collision course with each other. And that's before we even get into the biggest question of all. What exactly is Doom's goal? Because after looking through this trailer in detail, I don't think Doom is necessarily the villain we're going to be fighting from the very beginning. In fact, I think he might actually be working with the heroes, at least for a while. But first, we're going to break down the entire trailer, go over each and every scene, and I'm going to show you guys everything you missed in this trailer. It is Doomsday time, so let's go. Trailer breakdown. The Multiverse Saga started with Kang the Conqueror being our next big bad, but we all know how that turned out. Quantum Mania didn't do huge numbers, and then Jonathan Majors got sent to Rikers. Not literally, but you know what I mean. Disney pulled a huge Uno reversal by casting RDJ as Doctor Doom, one of the most infamous villains in Marvel history, right up there with Kang and Thanos. This was a win for the Multiverse Saga, which otherwise has been all over the place. We keep getting new characters and plots. Hello, Strange going off with Clea to stop an incursion. But no real Avenger team-ups or that connected storytelling that Marvel is known for. So Doomsday has one huge challenge. Much like Loki at the end of Season 2, it has to bring together the ever-expanding branches of the multiverse into one story. How it's going to do that is beyond me. But just to recap, we have already had 4 trailers for this movie, and this trailer is the 5th, and it basically goes like this. In the 5th one, we see everyone interacting, giving us some much-needed context, but the question on everyone's mind: is Tony a Doom variant? Is this Doom a Tony variant? That's pretty much what everyone's guessing right now. Sadly, we won't know until the movie. What we do know is that the multiverse is caving in on itself. What we saw at the end of No Way Home is finally happening. Realities are crashing into each other. And the trailer makes that extremely clear since it opens with Charles Xavier literally witnessing an incursion. Now, we actually know which universes are at risk of getting wiped out since Marvel dropped a brand new synopsis for the movie confirming that there are 3 universes: Earth 616, which is the MCU, Earth 828, the home of the Fantastic Four, and the Fox X-Men universe. My guess is this incursion is one of these 3 colliding with the other. 3 whole universes, but only one guy who can play Professor X, right? That leaves a big question though. What about Tobey and Andrew's Spider-Man? Honestly, none of the 3 Spideys have even been confirmed for the movie yet, so it's all up in the air. Now, I'm going to talk about some potential leaks, so just skip ahead if you don't want any of that. We did get a leaked script which says that Tobey's universe getting incursioned is going to be the opening act, but we've had no confirmation that this is a real script, so take that with a few grams of salt. Personally though, I'd be so down to see the Raimiverse again. Now, what really happens during an incursion? We've actually seen the beginning and the aftermath in the movies. In Multiverse of Madness, Sinister Strange's universe had no living beings left alive and was almost entirely consumed by a strange black substance. In the comics, incursions usually take out one or both colliding universes, with Earth being the point of contact. Also, you get 8 hours to stop an incursion. That's probably the amount of time the heroes will have to figure out how to go about gathering everyone, stopping, well, Doomsday, and confronting Doom. Continuing with the trailer, we finally get our first look at RDJ as Doom.
Before this day is done, we shall be faced with an unthinkable decision.
Right off the bat, he doesn't feel like Tony Stark at all, which is so refreshing because I think everyone wants Doom to be his own character. Victor Von Doom is one of Marvel's greatest villains because, at his core, he is a man who genuinely believes the world would be a better place if everyone simply listened to him. Born in Latveria, Doom was scarred after he lost his parents and underwent a failed experiment, after which he became obsessed with mastering both science and magic, eventually becoming a genius inventor, powerful sorcerer, and the ruler of his own country. And he's ruled over a lot more than just a country. Doom has defeated the Avengers countless times, stolen the powers of gods, and in Secret Wars, the dude literally made his own reality to rule over using those stolen powers. Speaking of Secret Wars, during a group meeting, Captain America was talking about how Doom might nuke them with a random blast out of nowhere. By this point, Doom had obtained immense power, and just 1 page later, that is exactly what happened. So yeah, Guy is a menace. He also has a European accent, which makes me feel like this isn't exactly a Tony Stark variant. But if Loki's variants are anything to go by, they can be pretty different from the OG variant that we're familiar with. I feel like I've said variant too many times today. Doom also talks about making an unthinkable decision, which I'm pretty sure is destroying one world to save the other, since that's how you stop incursions in the comics. Can't have two Earths colliding if you wipe one out. So the heroes might have to choose between trillions of lives, which is, well, yeah, unthinkable, which kinda sounds like a light word in this situation. We also see Doom in the middle of some ruins, which definitely seems similar to the X-Men scenes from the trailer so far. Now, Doom himself is likely from Earth 828 for two reasons. One, in the first steps, we saw Doom with Franklin Jr., suggesting that Doom has at least visited Earth 828 before. Two, during a global summit with international delegates, we see an empty seat marked with the name card Latveria, which, honestly, is huge evidence to me that Doom is from Earth 828. So far, Latveria hasn't been shown anywhere else in the MCU. The trailer then cuts to the new Avengers Tower, the same one CIA director Valentina Fontaine bought after Tony sold it to her in Homecoming. Also, little timeline reminder, this takes place 6 months after Thunderbolts, when the new Avengers formed. We get a Thor narration, and right off the bat,
You're far stronger than all of us put together. And they died.
he's doing a total 180 from his Love and Thunder attitude. We don't get a lighthearted, funny Thor. This guy is absolutely terrified, totally serious, and locked in completely. You have to think, what has the strongest Avenger so terrified? What's even more interesting to me is how Thor actually arrives with the Fantastic Four. Now, at the end of Thunderbolts, we actually saw a Fantastic Four ship approaching 616, and this makes me think, was Thor on that ship? Has he visited or stayed on Earth 828 before? And if Doom is from Earth 828 and Thor might have been there, were they fighting on Earth 828? Because later on, the trailer does get to that, and so will we. But for now, on to the next scene. We get Bucky, Sam, and Scott Lang together in this frame. And just a refresher, Bucky and Sam are currently divided on who the next Avengers are going to be. I mean, they are literally fighting over the name, like with lawyers and everything. You have the Thunderbolts, and you have Sam's team, which is just Scott, apparently. No offense to Ant-Man, he did take down Kang, and he's clearly one of the few heroes who's actually worried about the threat of the multiverse, but that's just not enough. He is probably going to be the bearer of bad news again, though, just like in Endgame. Oh, by the way, did anyone catch Bob's socks and shoes peeking out of the left corner? I live for my Sentry sneak peeks. Besides that, you also have Yelena, John Walker, Ben, Reed, Sue, Johnny, Thor, and of course, Red Guardian in his Avengers jumpsuit. With a Z, guys, because the Z is sacred. There are definitely some alliances being forged, and there are clues all over the place. Thor's narration, several shots of heroes meeting for the first time, and Thor generally acting as a middleman and leader between groups. It seems like a huge part of the movie is how these three universes are going to band together, becoming aware of the larger threat and uniting under one, possibly as Guardian, banner. Give a quick glance to the background in this scene, and you will also see a monitor showing three worlds connected by lines together. This could mean several things. First, it could be a map of which universes are at risk of an incursion. Two, it could be showing which universes will collide first, and since it's a three-way split, it looks unclear. Three, it could be an MCU original. Incursions involve two worlds colliding at once, but what about three? That would put them all in immediate danger and force the heroes to quickly assemble. Right after this, we skip to Namor and Shuri. Now, these guys have a lot of tension, which is a natural side effect of trying to kill each other with sharp, pointy things. And there was that whole bit about Namor killing Shuri's mom, attacking the capital city, and waging war on Wakanda. So, yeah, lots of baggage here. And it shows, because they almost immediately start fighting, even though this seemed like an attempt from Wakanda to gain Talokan's help. Shuri's also joined by Ben and M'Baku in this scene, so it seems like the Fantastic Four are doing a lot of recruitment work. Also, notice how Namor and his throne are underwater? He might just be making a landing pad for the Fantastic Four, but it also seems a bit more than that. He is literally camping out on land with a throne and everything. Why go to all that effort just to greet some strangers? The scene ends, and we cut to Thor landing on the same battlefield as Doom. Notice how there are so many broken statues and parts scattered around the battlefield? My guess is that these are either the mutant hunting Sentinels or the Doombots. Now, the Sentinels are designed to identify and eliminate mutants. They're one of the biggest symbols of mutant oppression. The Doombots, on the other hand, are one-to-one clones of Victor Von Doom, robot clones naturally, that he made to stand in for himself when he's not around. Each of them thinks that they're the real Doom, and an army of them is a genuine threat. But Sentinels or Doombots, why are they destroyed? My guess? An army of Doombots that Thor had to fight through. Why? My theory is Doom kidnapped Love, who is Thor's adoptive daughter from Love and Thunder, who has a connection to eternity. one of the strongest cosmic entities in the MCU. I mean, Doom was already seen with a near-invincible child with remarkable powers, so besides Love and Franklin, there's also Loki, Thor's brother, who is now the god of stories. He's holding, well, everything together, literally. These three are currently untapped dams of power, and I think Doom, of all people, would know that. In the comics, his scheming is unrivaled after all, so this isn't really new for him. Like I said, he stole the powers of the Beyonders in 2015's Secret Wars, and those guys are cosmic top dogs, so we also see an attack on the X-Mansion and a huge tree, comic-accurate X-Men uniforms. They did it for Wolverine, so I was really hoping that we would see it here too, and Scott looks so good. Then we finally get some MCU versus Fox action with Shang-Chi versus Gambit, and it looks so good, man. Like, literally perfect. Plus, Mystique giving us Yelena versus Yelena. Gambit going off on everyone, and Scott Summers losing his absolute shit with a huge blast. Seems like that's all he does in these trailers. Also, Alan Cummings confirmed that his Nightcrawler fights Pedro Pascal's Mr. Fantastic. But again, why are they fighting? So, two reasons. Either they're hunting the X-Men to save their own universe, or recruiting them to fight Doom/stop the Incursions. I'm personally leaning more towards the recruitment thing because we also see Reed Richards, Herbie, and Sam Wilson, and as we know it, it seems like the Fantastic Four has taken up the task of assembling the heroes. Also, a small but huge Loki scene. We get to see a much different Loki. It's not the God of Stories Loki we saw at the end of Season 2. He's wearing TVA clothing, he's got a TVA card, but there are a few interesting, potentially huge details here. That TVA card, it has Yggdrasil etched on the back of it, and I don't think that's a random design choice. Normal TVA cards don't look like that, and I'm definitely sure it's intentional. I think this is God of Stories Loki, but in disguise. Maybe Loki has temporarily left his position at the center of the multiverse because something is happening that requires his personal attention. The immediate two questions are, how would he know Doom is coming, and who would he warn? The first one has a pretty straightforward answer. Loki is now the God of Stories. He is sitting at the center of the multiverse, watching over countless branches of reality. I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that Loki could see something coming before anyone else even knows it exists. If Doom is about to become a multiversal threat, Loki might be one of the only beings in existence capable of seeing the entire picture. Doom is a huge threat, so I can see Loki stepping out to take some initiative. And who is he warning? I think it's Steve Rogers. When we see Loki in the trailer, he is in a very familiar looking room. The curtains look awfully like the ones we see in the room Steve is in. You know, with the teaser where he's holding his baby, even the lighting matches. On top of that, there are two really important bits of visual info. The man who's twirling the card is wearing black, the exact same color of Steve's jacket when we see him in the trailer later, and the man has a wedding ring. And as we know, Steve had a life with Peggy and even had a kid. I believe that there's also only one man worth warning, and it is Steve Rogers, because Steve is the one person who can unite everyone, and that's important because this isn't the original Avengers team. Steve is going to have to bring together people who have never met each other before. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the Thunderbolts, Wakanda, Talokan, and probably a whole lot of others who aren't exactly going to be thrilled about working together. But Steve has the leadership to get them all in line. Plus, this time, he'd have the support of Sam and Bucky, as well as Ant-Man and Thor, who seems to be the central leader for everyone. So, off the bat, Steve would be backed by some of the biggest players on the board. We then see M'Baku meeting and shaking hands with Ben Grimm, which I think means is a pretty good sign since it likely means that they've recruited Wakanda. Plus, we also see Ben, Bucky, Sam, Joaquin Torres, who, if you didn't know, is the new Falcon, and Ghost, which I guess means Bucky and Sam, in the words of Thor, put aside their petty copyright squabbles. In the previous trailer, and this one, we also see Sue Storm interacting with Shorty, and it seemed like the two of them were not only familiar, but also, friendly? Like they were working together. I wonder if we'll get any spicy Sue Storm and Namor interactions though, because in the comics, these guys have been an on and off thing. Yeah, Sue always ends up with Reed, but Namor's like a side piece. Although in this trailer, it also seems like he's on the receiving end of a telekinetic blast from Sue, which is also a dynamic that I'd be totally down for. We get a few frames of Magneto and Xavier, who I'm still convinced are preparing to die. But hey, that's my 2 cents. And then Scott embracing Cassie in what seems to be an intimate before the big mission bonding type moment. And then we get my favorite part of the trailer, Doctor Doom versus Thor, the strongest Avenger. Man, this was total insanity. So let's start with what we're all thinking. Doom stopping Stormbreaker, not even Mjolnir, Stormbreaker, with just 2 fingers. Giving the strongest Avenger the Trunks treatment in your debut movie is crazy work, and it immediately establishes Victor Von Doom as an absolute powerhouse. Stormbreaker isn't some regular legendary Asgardian weapon either. This thing cleaved through a blast powered by all 6 Infinity Stones and pierced Thanos' chest. Later on, Thor even used it to take Thanos' head, after Thanos himself admitted that Thor should have gone for the kill immediately. Also, some nice character development there. Thor finally goes for the head. Unfortunately, it fails worse than he did in Infinity War. Plus, there has to be an explanation for how he's stopping Stormbreaker. Look, I love Victor Von Doom, but normally he's not that strong. In the comics, Doom has a habit of acquiring ridiculous amounts of strength from beings who are much more powerful than he is. Thor then narrates about how we're going to need a miracle. And immediately, the screen cuts to Steve Rogers. Thor's completely in shock. He can't believe his eyes, and he tries to do a little 2-step authorization on Steve, who immediately proves himself by calling Mjolnir right out of Thor's hands. And that's it. That's the trailer. Okay, guys, there's a lot to unpack here. Loki's warning. First off, Loki. I think Loki is truly bringing Steve back into the fight, but that raises a whole other question. Could Loki have been protecting Steve this entire time? Because there's something about Endgame that's been really strange when you apply what we've learned about the multiverse. Steve got his happy ending by going back in time, but he was in a timeline he wasn't supposed to be in, and yet we never saw an incursion. Now, the MCU never explained exactly how Steve's actions worked, so this isn't confirmed. But if Loki is now watching over the multiverse, it is possible he knew Steve would eventually be needed. We are deep in theory right now, but bear with me. Maybe Steve's life with Peggy wasn't an accident. Maybe Loki let that branch exist because he knew that one day Captain America would be needed to save everything. Maybe that's why Loki is now appearing away from his throne, disguised as a former version of himself. He could have taken Steve and Peggy out of the universe where their existence would have been an incursion-triggering problem and put them in one where they simply never existed, potentially Earth 828? The 3 universes. The main players of the movie are Earth 616, Earth 828, and the Fox X-Men universe, but I don't think that these 3 are just some random worlds Marvel picked because it would be cool to see them together. I think each one has a very specific role in this story. Earth 616 is the universe that we've been following this whole time, the home of the Avengers, of Thanos, of the Blip. It survived the events of No Way Home, people dreamwalking, and it was the beginning of the multiverse crisis. They are essentially the survivors trying to figure out what's happening. Then you have Earth 828, the Fantastic Four's home. Right now, the only thing we know about them is this: the Fantastic Four has met with Thor. They seem to be making alliances wherever they go. You get Ben shaking hands with M'Baku, Sue seemingly being chummy with Shuri, and Reed even goes to the X-Men mansion alongside Shang-Chi and Yelena. Now, as for how that recruitment is going, well, the answer is unclear, at least as far as X-Men and Namor are concerned. Speaking of the Fantastic Four, there's this frame of Johnny holding her with a blazing white background, which seems like an incoming incursion. Could Sue be dying a second time in this movie? That would give her something in common with Patrick Stewart's Xavier, since dying is about all he is good for in the MCU. Going back to Theory Town earlier, we talked about the possibility of Thor going to Earth 828 before Doomsday, but the real question is, how would he do it? He does know the Guardians, and there may be some as of yet unseen Asgardian magic that could help. But also, it's not like he doesn't know a certain Sorcerer Supreme who could potentially help with that, who, by the way, was suspiciously absent from the trailer. Earth 828 could be extremely important for another reason though: Reed Richards, the one man who could understand the science behind an incursion. The Fantastic Four could be the people who understand what's happening to the multiverse before anyone else does. Doom's famous for one more thing too: having one of the most intense rivalries in Marvel history with Reed Richards. If Doom is connected to 828, or better yet, comes from it, then this could potentially be a very personal conflict with Reed wanting to save reality and Doom wanting to control it. But that's again a theory. Doom is always trying to outdo Reed Richards in the comics, and I can't see any other direction for his character. But then again, they changed Thanos a lot too, and that guy was a stoic martyr in the MCU. Back to the plot. The worst of the 3 universes is undoubtedly the X-Men universe. It seems like they're going through the brunt of the incursion. And one thing I noticed was that the heroes from the other 2 universes seem to just be going to places and traveling pretty freely. It is the X-Men who are going through it in every single scene that we've gotten of them. They're also the first people to get a front row view of an incursion. So could the X-Men universe be the first victim? It would make sense, especially if they decide to address the timeline shenanigans from the original Fox universe finally. There's nobody that's messed with the timeline more than those guys, and them being the first to get wiped out could be an in-universe consequence of that. Of course, the real-life explanation is that this wipes the slate clean for Marvel's Mutant Saga and gives the MCU a simple way to introduce their new X-Men. So far, we have 3 distinct universes, 2 of which seem to be getting along and one that's going through the worst of it. They all have one thing in common, the incursions, and that's why I think Doom isn't the villain of this movie. No, I think the incursions are the real problem, but here's one thing about Doom. There's no such thing as a Doom that doesn't scheme. The incursion problem. This is where the story could become much darker than a simple heroes versus Doom movie. We've talked about what incursions are and how to stop them, and how that's likely going to be the decision Doom gives a warning about in the trailer. So that puts the heroes from each universe in a horrible position. Genocide or annihilation. They have to pick between trillions of lives, theirs or some other universe. If that's the truth, it would explain why they're all so desperate, and here's why my theory gets really interesting, because that desperation is exactly what Doom can exploit. I don't think Doom necessarily needs to destroy the heroes himself, he just needs to make them believe that they're the ones who have to choose. If you notice something though, Doom's narration wasn't an internal monologue, he was talking to somebody, or some bodies actually. This brings us back to the incredibly important word from the trailer. Doom says, we. We who? Doom is a lone wolf, always has been. He doesn't have a team or a revolving door of henchmen like Thanos. So why did Doom say we? And why is this we being faced with an unthinkable decision? Faced with the task of deterring this something that's coming. None of that sounds like things that villains do. But the heroes, that's exactly what they might be doing in this movie. The whole premise of it is stopping that something, the incursions, and being faced with difficult choices about who to save. And that's why I think Doom's actually working with the heroes. He knows about the incursions, he knows that the 3 universes are heading toward disaster, and he knows that the heroes don't have the knowledge and resources to stop them. But more importantly, he knows he can't stop them alone either. I don't think any one person in the multiverse can do that. So what does he do? He helps them, combining his intelligence with Reed Richards and the resources of 828 and 616, before finally swooping in for the top spot like he's known to do in the comics. I mean, that is literally what he does in Secret Wars, taking the power of the Beyonders and creating Battleworld, a new reality built from the remains of everything that was destroyed, a reality that he rules. And that's what he might do here too, help the heroes out as the mysterious survivor from another universe that has the answers that they need. Watch them destroy each other in order to save their own universes, and then take the multiverse itself in his hands. I think Thor vs. Doom actually happens right after Doom ends up betraying the heroes. Thor arrives with the Fantastic Four. The heroes believe they have a solution, and then they realize that Doom has been playing them the entire time. I don't think this Doom is a Tony Stark variant either. Honestly, everything that we've seen so far feels deliberately designed to separate this character from Tony. Plus, why bring Evans back and give us RDJ versus Evans again when we can have Reed versus Doom? If the MCU is sticking to what we know about incursions from the comics, then that unthinkable decision Doom is talking about might be the perfect setup for Secret Wars, because we would have destroyed realities, a chessboard free of opposition, and Doom standing tall among the ashes. And if Doom is from or connected to Earth 828, then we might finally get the Reed and Doom matchup that we've been waiting for. 2 men, 2 scientists who never let the impossible stop them, but where one creates, the other controls. We all know the MCU has been headed towards a soft reboot, and that's what Secret Wars was in the comics too, and we know this movie is setting that one up. The incursions are a pretty solid way to do it, and at the end of the movie, we could be left with no heroes, only Doom. As he builds a new world made of the ruins of the ones that came before, his world, Battleworld. I'm going to be honest, I really needed 5 minutes after this trailer simply for the matchups alone. I mean, heroes versus heroes is always a treat, but seeing the classic X-Men in action is even better, and Doom just gets better and better the more we see him. But tell me what you guys think. Is Doom plotting a huge betrayal? Is he playing the heroes right into his hands, potentially piling up a death count previously unheard of in the MCU? Wherever Doom goes, bodies drop. But if they are actually taking the source material for Secret Wars, I really think we're going to get Battleworld eventually. And if you want a video on that, and why Secret Wars was such a huge event in the comics, let us know below. Share your theories, what you liked, what you hated, if the trailer got you hyped, whether you think Red Guardian is going to die wearing that Avengers jumpsuit, and everything else in your mind with us. The best part about these movies is all the stuff that you guys come up with.